أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أوحي إلي أنه استمع نفر من الجن فقالوا إنا سمعنا قرآنا عجبا يهدي إلى الرشد فآمنا به ولن نشرك بربنا أحدا وأنه تعالى جد ربنا ما اتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا وأنه كان يقول سفيهنا على الله شططا وأنا ظننا أن لن تقول الإنس والجن على الله كذبا وأنه كان رجال من الإنس يعوذون برجال من الجن فزادوهم رهقا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي فالحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ثم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, today hopefully we can finish our series and begin a new series after that. But Surah Al-Jinn, inshallah, is where we're starting today. Surah Al-Jinn is probably the most comprehensive passages in the Quran dealing with the creation of the jinn and the creatures and what we are to know about them from revelation in the Quran. Of course, hadith literature is also extensive about the jinn. The previous mention of the jinn, if there's any place that has somewhat of a detail, is Surah Al-Ahqaf. There's some things there. And Surah Al-Rahman, of course, فَبِأَيِّ أَلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. The pair is used constantly for the human beings and the jinn. But this time actually we get to hear from the jinn themselves. There are, according to some, the mention in Surah Al-Ahqaf and here is the same incident. Others say these are two distinct incidents where a group of jinn heard the Prophet ﷺ reciting the Quran and they actually were so mesmerized by it that they became Muslims. And then they have a monologue, they're speaking. And this was, now their speech the Prophet ﷺ didn't hear, but it was revealed to him that this is what the jinn are saying. Now the word jinn, before we go any further, the word jinn comes from the verb janna yajinnu. Janna yajinnu, which actually means to cover. Janna yajinnu means to cover. And from it, other nouns, other, jamid asma that come are jannah. Jannah comes from the same origin because it's a garden that's covered. Hadiqa, al-kalima al-mu'tada, al-adiyah, lil-hadiqa, or garden. Normally we don't look at a garden and say it's a jannah. That's not the typical word for it. Hadiqa is the typical word for it. Not to be confused with haqiba, Arabic students. Haqiba is a book bag. Okay, so then you have the word Jannah. Jannah is a garden that's so green you can't see any dirt. You don't see any blemishes. It's completely covered in greenery and fruit and flowers and all that sort of stuff. That's called a Jannah. So like a really lush garden is called Jannah. Okay, and it's not just paradise in the afterlife sense. Jannah is used also for worldly gardens too that are extremely lush. In the story of Al-Kahf, it's being used for the gardens that the guy owns, right? So kilta jannatain, same word is used. Now, from it also comes the word janeen. Janeen is the womb of the mother and the fetus, because the baby is being hidden inside. The creature that is hidden from the eyes and his conversation is hidden from the ears and his movements are hidden from humanity is the jinn. The hidden creature. So that's one of the origins of the word jinn. In Arab culture, they thought that these creatures, they have some relationship with snakes. Like when they see snake, they're like, oh, it must be a jinn or shaitan. They associated snakes with like satanic type things or jinn, demon type things. So one of the words for snake is jan with a noon shadda. Same origin. Jannun, it's ism fa'il. Janinun becomes Jannun. That's used for a large snake that terrifies you as though you saw a jinn. That's where the word Jan is used. And that's actually used, one of the names of the python that the staff turned into. The Quran actually uses, there are 3 words for snake in Arabic, and all 3 are used for the staff turning into a snake. Hayya, Thu'ban, and Jan. All 3 are used. Right? That's a side discussion, but that's actually the staff of Musa alayhi salam. When sometimes Allah calls it a hayya, sometimes He calls it a Thu'ban, and sometimes He calls it a Jan. And Jan implies specifically something that terrifies, something that you see, like you see in a jinn. That's what it terrifies, what it implies. Anyhow, So these creatures, before we go into the surah, I just want to, hopefully heal you and cure you of some curiosities you might have. Ooh, I wonder if this surah is going to have some jinn stories. Ustad Maman, do you know any jinn stories? You know any possession stories? Have you ever seen a jinn? Have you ever heard of anything? Is there a sheikh that can tell us about jinns or something? People are obsessed with jinn stuff. Okay, it's the comic book aspect of our religion where people are just really, really into it and for some reason, and they're really intrigued by it. And if somebody tells a jinn story, everybody huddles around and says, oh, that's awesome. And it's perfect, because when you talk about the shayateen, they gather around. They join the halaqah too. So, talking about them is actually calling their attention. Okay, if there's very little we know about them, but one of the things we know about them is people that take an interest in them, they take an interest in them. So, avoid your jinn story swapping and all of that. It's not an entertainment subject. It's a creature of Allah. Shaitan is from them, but not all jinns are shayateen. We'll learn in this surah, some of them are Muslims, some of them are not quite Muslims. They're not even called evil necessarily. Minna duna dhalik, there are others of us that are just, they're not evil, or they're not bad, etc. But they're not good either, etc. So there are a separate creation of Allah. In biblical literature, basically the only equivalent to that we have is demons. I mean, they usually basically call them demons. And demon, of course, when they use that word, they necessarily imply a hellish creature, like an evil creature, right? Now the two unseen entities that we know of, or basically there are three unseen entities that we know of that have intellect, right? That Allah created, that we know of. There's the human being, which has an unseen entity in him, the ruh. The ruh is an unseen entity. The physical, the jasad is seen, but the ruh is unseen, right? The second unseen entity is the angel, and then the third unseen entity is the jinn. So there are three actual unseen entities. Usually we think of the angels and the jinn, but there's actually the human being, which inside of him, interestingly, the human being has inside of him two things. And human beings inside of us, Allah says, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا, right? He inspired the human being with capability, potential of evil and of good. Our good potential comes from our ruh. Our ruh, and from what the Prophet ﷺ told us in describing the ruh, one time he called it nur. He called it light. And we also know that angels are made of light. So we have an angelic dimension to us in some sense. Some part of it is angelic in nature, wants to obey Allah. When I say angelic, I mean absolutely willing to obey Allah under all circumstances. And that's the ruh. قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. Right? The ruh is from the amr of Allah. The ruh was in complete obedience to Allah. It was in Allah's company before it was put into our mothers. Our own ruh. So it has that, quality of light, which is also given to angels. Then inside of us, there's an evil tendency, and of course the Prophet ﷺ describes that the shayateen can run inside our blood. They can literally just run in our blood. Quran talks about the closeness of the shayateen, the invisible dimension. The shayateen, the jinns, they can be around our chest, right? مِنْ شَرِّ الْوَسْوَاسِ الْخَنَّاسِ الَّذِي يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ. Yeah, so it goes around the chest of the person, and he's there. Allah didn't give him access to the heart, that's His mercy. He says chest, like fi sudur nas, not fi qulub nas. You open the door to the vault and let him into your heart, that's your problem. But he has a close enough access. He's also an entity inside of us. Inside the qalb we have our ruh. And outside you have this, the access of Iblis, of the access of the shayateen. They're there too, and they have access to make waswasa to us. We have to fight them. So there's this internal, you can call it an internal conflict, a battle happening. You could think there's an outside battle that's going to be described in the skies that happens between the angels and the jinn. And the angels definitely win. They shoot, anti-aircraft, anti-jinn, projectiles at them, and they run. And there's this intergalactic battle happening in the skies, and we're going to learn about that. But there's actually a battle happening inside of us, which is also a battle between our angelic side and the shayateen that have access to do waswasa inside of us, right? This is the part of jinns that we should know about. This is the part of, the presence of shayateen and how we're supposed to make sure that we're pure, that we're physically pure, that we don't attract it because the shayateen are attracted to filth, how we're supposed to stay in wudu, how the Prophet ﷺ gives advice to us of how we should purify ourselves before we go to sleep, so we don't see evil dreams and that they don't make waswasa in our dreams and things like that, Those are the kinds of things we really should look out for. Of course, the other things that we, in Desi culture are really like suffering from is like magic and spell casting and somebody put a jinn on them and this and that. That's kind of crazy stuff. And I'm surprised that even in educated circles, this kind of thing is like really common. This kind of talk and this kind of belief and this kind of like, a cousin of mine, my aunt didn't like that she was getting married to this person, so she put a jinn on him or her or something crazy. I'm like, you go to an Ivy League school, you're talking like this? What's wrong with you? Yeah, and also she wears an amulet around her arm or did this or that to protect themselves from the influence of the jinn. You know, that idea of protecting yourself from the jinn, we're going to learn something about that here in this surah. So some secrets about that will be unlocked at least. So we understand how we're supposed to be dealing with this creature. Allah mentions them very little in the Quran, enough so we know that they exist. And more than jinn, Allah warns us about shaitan. More than the jinn. Shaitan is one brand of jinn. He warns us about them. And within shayateen, there are jinn shayateen and there are human shayateen. And the word shaitan, from shatana or shata, it's two origins that are argued. That it could be fa'lan, it could be like a mubalagha, right? And if it's from shatana or shata, either way the meaning is influenced a little bit, it means someone on the one hand who's extremely hopeless and the other extremely enraged. Someone extremely depressed, has no hopes in the mercy of Allah and then does whatever he does. If you have no hopes, like if somebody truly, truly believes, I'm not going to heaven anyway, might as well just do whatever. I'm a lost cause anyway. Then they become a shaitan. Because they have no hope. That's why Allah doesn't allow us to lose hope in His mercy. لا تقنطوا لا ييأسوا إنه لا ييأس من روح الله إلا الظالمون. And لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله. Don't lose hope in the mercy of Allah. And the other meaning of shaitan is someone who's overly enraged. Overly enraged. And so people that are they live a life of rage and anger and hate, that's also a shaitan. Someone who becomes just indulged in that completely. And that just becomes their life. So may Allah Azza wa Jal protect us from the waswasa of shayateen. And so we begin, قُل, tell them, let them know, أُوحِيَ إِلَيَّ, it has been revealed to me, أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِّنَ الْجِنِّ, that a group, a party from among the jinn heard. They just listened carefully. أَنَّهُ اسْتَمَعَ نَفَرٌ مِّنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْمَفْعُولُ بِهِ لَمْ يُذْكَرْ. They heard something carefully. And when they say استمع, you would expect استمع له, استمعوا للقرآن, استمعوا لقراءة القرآن, something, some مفعول به, some object should be mentioned. It just says they listened carefully. It doesn't say listen carefully to what. And instead of telling us to what, it goes straight to their reaction post listening. فَقَالُوا, then they, as a result, then they declared, إِنَّا سَمِعْنَا قُرْآنًا عَجَبًا. We, no doubt about it, we're the ones we heard a really unique recital. A unique recitation, a great Quran. Quran literally a recital, a recitation. عَجَبًا بَدِيعًا فِي بَلَاغَتِهِ وَفَصَاحَتِهِ. It was something that's unique, unparalleled. We've never heard anything like it. So the Prophet ﷺ is reciting Quran and there are jinns around and they're listening. On the one hand, we ask Allah when we recite Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, right? Which should get rid of all the evil jinns from around you when you're reciting Quran. فَإِذَا قَرَأْتَ الْقُرْآنَ فَاسْتَعِذْ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. When you recite Quran, seek refuge of Allah from shaitan, the ultimate evil. But that doesn't mean all the jinns go away, because not all the jinns are evil. There are innocent, non-Muslim jinns too. They're not evil. Just because they're not Muslim doesn't mean they're evil. They're just creatures of Allah, like they're not non-Muslims that are, like Mus'ab ibn Umayr is an innocent non-Muslim until he becomes Muslim. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is an innocent non-Muslim until he becomes Muslim. These are people that were not Muslims, but that doesn't mean they were evil. That just means they hadn't accepted Islam yet. Just like that, we have jinn that are around and they're listening to the Quran and they're impressed by it, they're moved by it. Yahdi ila rushd, it guides path. فَآمَنَّا بِهِ, so we've come to believe in it. وَلَن نُشْرِكَ بِرَبِّنَا أَحَدًا, and we will not associate anyone with our Master, ever, ever. وَأَنَّهُ تَعَالَى جَدُّ رَبِّنَا, and He, how high is the majesty of our Master is. Ta'ala is the fi'il, jaddu is the fa'il. Ta'ala jaddu rabbina. The majesty of our Master is so high. His nobility, His glory is so high. ارتفع وعظم. مَا اتَّخَذَ صَاحِبَةً. He didn't take any wife. He didn't take any associate. Sahiba, here used in the meaning of wife. وَلَا وَلَدًا, nor did He take a son, a child. وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ يَقُولُ سَفِيهُنَا عَلَى اللَّهِ شَطَطًا. And our idiot used to say all kinds of violent, vulgar things about Allah. Our idiot used to say that. They're calling shaitan the idiot among us, Safihuna. He's their big chief. The shaitan is the very powerful, jinn, who had such a high ranking. You all know, even above the angels, he had a ranking. But he's lost that place, but he's still got a pretty high ranking among the jinn. He's got seniority there. He's got a lot of power there. So, but they, now that they've come to Islam, they don't even say Iblis. They don't even call him Iblis. They call him our idiot, Safihuna, the stupid one among us. That's what they call shaitan. And then they use the word shatat, which I think you might have heard where? Surah Al-Kahf, right? قَوْلًا مُفْرِطًا فِي الْكَذِبِ وَالضَّلَالِ. A word that goes beyond the limit in being a lie and in being a misguiding, a statement. Something that misguides others. This is shatat. So the idiot of ours keeps saying all kinds of misleading things about Allah. كَانَ يَقُولُ سَفِيهُنَا عَلَى اللَّهِ شَطَطًا. وَأَنَّا ظَنَنَّا. And now, for sure, we've come to realize, and we've come to know for sure. عَلِمْنَا وَإِقَنَّا الْآنِ. يعني we know and we are truly convinced now. أَلَّنْ تَقُولَ الْإِنسُ وَالْجِنُّ عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا. And actually, we used to believe back then, how could a human being or a jinn ever speak a lie against Allah? If these people that are more knowledgeable than we are, they're speaking, human beings they thought of as more knowledgeable than themselves, because human beings from the very beginning have been even given more knowledge, sometimes more knowledge than the angels have of the world. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا ثُمَّ عَرَضَهُمْ عَلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ. Right? Adam was given names of things and angels were asked and they didn't know. So they thought of human beings as more knowledgeable too, the jinn. And on the other hand, there are jinns that are more senior than them, and they always assumed, oh, we realize now that was a mistake. We always assumed if somebody speaks about Allah, why would they be lying? Well, how could they? So they were gullible. That's the other dimension to it. And by the way, there's a parallel to that in humanity. There are people that are just gullible. And they assume, why would my priest, why would my pastor, why would the imam, why would the rabbi, why would they ever say anything wrong? What would they get out of it? Why shouldn't I trust them? And life is simple that way. Life is just simple that way, Until you come across the truth and it hits you really hard. And then it's really hard to tell others that too, because they have the same question you have had all your life. Why would they lie? They're nice people. Why wouldn't they say the truth? This, being able to separate truth from your love of people is very difficult. It's a very difficult thing to do. Because a lot of times when people can't leave a false religion, it's not because it makes sense to them. It's because people they love, they say, why would they do something wrong? How can I get myself to say all the people I love and respect and admire are not only on the wrong path, they're preaching the wrong path. And they're teaching the wrong path. I can't get myself to accept that. It's a very difficult transition. So it's so for the jinn. وَأَنَّهُ كَانَ رِجَالٌ مِنَ الْإِنسِ يَعُوذُونَ بِرِجَالٍ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. Check this out. And we also knew that for a long time there were men among the human beings. They would go, this is an Arab tradition, they would go out and travel a lot in the night. They preferred traveling in the night because the day was too hot. When they would travel in the night, they would take rest stops sometimes. Some woods, some patch of mountain or somewhere, and they would hear the howling of a wolf or dogs or something, or predator snakes and things like that. So they thought all of this is like jinns. So we're in this jinn's territory. So they would light a fire, and then the Arabs would just get up and say, back in the Jahiliyyah days, we are coming into the protection of the jinns of this territory. We mean no harm and we acknowledge your greatness and blah, blah, blah. They'd give a speech to the jinns that are in the area and say, please let us stay in your hotel, type of deal. And the jinns who have no such expected, they don't have this here's our territory. They had no such thing. That's all made up in the human mind. Ever since I've been, little, I went to, when I was little, I went to Pakistani school, and my friends were like, those woods over there? There's jinns that live there. And that tree, don't go under that tree. A jinn will jump on you, and then your teeth will get longer. And, I had a friend, his feet became monkey feet because he slept under that tree or something. They got all these stories. So you always think that's the jinn area over there, right? And this happens in many, many cultures. And this happened in ancient Arab culture. And by the way, were jinn around? Yes, they were around. And they're sitting there going, how stupid is it? We thought these human beings are intelligent. They're really stupid. They're asking our protection.